Well, I know I'm repping the Hawkeyes today.
Oh yeah, it's two of us.
Growing up in Iowa City, even though I went to Iowa State and, became a Cyclone, you still got to rep the hometown territory. And I don't know, you got to root for Iowa in general. So, we have Erik Sowinski on today, former Hawkeye, and really excited to finally have a chance to talk to you. I was watching you race indoor, especially at the rec building in Iowa City in like 2008 when I was in high school in Iowa City. So been following you for quite a while, and your career's been long and successful. So yeah, we're really excited to have a chance to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So you just got off little vacations, and then you're headed to Europe tomorrow, I believe?
Yeah, so we just had a little family trip up to northern Wisconsin. We were up on a lake up there and just kind of hung out for the week. And I got back this weekend and still confirming exactly when I'm leaving. A couple things up in the air, but I'll be leaving sometime this week for Europe for a few pacing jobs. So.
Excellent. And how many racing versus pacing, or do you not even know the full schedule until you get over there?
A lot of the pacing sometimes could be kind of last minute, so I'd assume it'll probably be like 50-50, but I just kind of roll with it wherever they need me. I'm happy to show up and race or pace, whatever they need. So.
Yeah, what's your typical makeup? Like if you're doing kind of a circuit like that, are you just kind of like waiting for people to ask you to do more pacing jobs, or like do you kind of build that into your racing schedule? How does that work?
So I think like the biggest thing now, like not having a contract, like for me, like it needs to make sense to go over there and do a trip. Like I'm not going to go over to Europe to lose money. So I mean that's I mean so that's a big thing, right? So I mean if you go in and you pay something, like obviously that's going to be a guaranteed income. Whereas, some of these races might only pay, the top 3-4 guys. Obviously, they give you a little bit of money for travel. So a lot of it is, making sure the expenses are covered. And then obviously, depending on the time of year, like, if we're prepping for US champs, like we don't want to be over racing or doing anything like that. But now that we're kind of later in the year, I'm just kind of up for whatever. So, yeah, I mean, if I could race every other day while I was over there, I'd gladly do that. But, doesn't always happen that way. So
I'm really curious just to dive in on the kind of the financial aspects of pacing and racing. So my guess is, like you said, that pacing is, at least you're getting guaranteed income, a known amount. But then racing, you would potentially have more upside if you have, a really good race, you get top 3, et cetera. So, and also with racing too, like you want to have some races for yourself to, go for your own PBs and whatever, and race to race versus having to pace all the time. So are you able to share any of the like economics behind that? Like how many pacing jobs do you have to do to really like pay for the trip? So then the rest of the trip can just be, straight up racing for prize money and for your own, own personal racing season?
Obviously it probably kind of depends how long the trip is. Like if I can string, meet after meet that I don't have to pay somewhere to stay in between races, then that, obviously that makes sense. I mean, if it's a Diamond League race, like, I mean, if I could get one Diamond League meet where I pace an 8 and a 15, like that'll, cover the trip and obviously make that worth it for me. But at the same time, like I'm such a competitive person that I still love to race. So, sometimes I'll go pace a race and turn around and use all that money to go race somewhere else. And I mean, that's just kind of the name of the game, right? I mean, like I had a good race out in Mount Sac, like USATF had that Golden Games meet this year, like go take 3rd place and, beat a pretty, like, most of a definitely quality field and end up, losing money taking 3rd place. But, sometimes you just have to like do those things. So, I mean, the ranking points are huge now just with like how track is structured. So getting into those bigger races, having to do that is really just like a necessity if, you're looking to, make these world championship teams. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. Like, I mean, I'm not going to be rich from pacing these meets, but, it allows me to at least, still, chase the races that I, kind of want to have on my schedule, and at least, put me in a position that I think will give me the best chance to run well at a major championship. So,
yeah, absolutely. Are you, when they're bringing you in for a pace job, are they also hooking you up with like a hotel, and are there bonuses for if someone behind you sets a record, that sort of thing as well?
Yeah, so I mean, they'll always set up like the hotel and meals, and that is all taken care of. So that's definitely awesome. Then the bonuses, a lot of it's like dependent on a meet. If an athlete is going for a record and they do that, like sometimes the athlete or their agent will throw a little extra money at you. But for the most part, it's just kind of like a flat fee from the meet itself, and then sometimes if things go well for someone, then they'll kind of throw something else extra there. So
yeah.
I'm curious just because we have, I know we have a couple listener questioners, but one that I wanted to get out of the way early on, speaking just on the pacing, is what is the craziest, the most ridiculous pace somebody has asked you to set?
Ooh, that 1K in Monaco that I just did was kind of crazy. So they wanted 117 through 600. And Marco Arab was trying to run like 144.5 through 800 of 1,000. I mean, I think he ended up being like 145.4, 145.5 or something like that. But yeah, that one was pretty crazy. I mean, and then there's been a couple 15s where they've asked for like 150.5 or 151 flat, which is pretty fast. So I think maybe. I don't remember if it was Brussels or Zurich, the final last year. One of those was pretty quick. And then obviously Monaco last year, they wanted a quick pace. So those are, for me, like I can usually make it like 900 off of that pace. But after that, I'm like, good luck, guys.
I mean, that is nuts. So to think about pacing especially when people are going for records, it's like the only people that can even potentially pace those records are like, a handful of people that could potentially even set the records themselves. So it's like such a small pool of opportunities or people that you can even pull in for these things. So it is wild. It's just wild to me, like the whole kind of job of, pace setting, et cetera. And we've talked to Craig Nowak about this a little bit, as well as kind of an up and coming pacer that's becoming Mr. Reliable on his own front. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It's such an interesting, just aspect of track and field, I guess, to get pulled into some of this. I'm curious, have you ever finished a race while you were pacing? Like you just felt good at the front, you just carried on and you ended up, winning or placing at a race?
No, there's a couple times that I've considered it. But it was times where I was pacing like an 8 and a 15 and the 800 was first. And I was like, probably not the best idea. I would have to be very confident in how I was feeling, or if guys just like were completely not going with the pace and they were so far off that I would, feel confident that I would have a chance to win the race. Otherwise it would look really bad. So I have to be really confident how I was feeling, pretty late into the race to do that.
That would be the ultimate flex, though, to just finish it out.
Oh, to just set the pace and then finish it. Yeah, that'd be amazing. I'm curious, like we kind of talked about you being competitive. How do you like, what's your racing mindset versus pacing mindset? And like, how much crossover is there when you're racing? Do you find that because you're like very good at obviously keeping pace that impacts like any tactics that you employ?
I think it's almost kind of the reverse. Like I've been in so many races and so many different kinds of races that like I feel very confident in knowing, whether I feel terrible on a day or whether I feel really good on a day that I'm pacing, like I know that I'm going to be able to hit those paces. So I think that like the competitive mindset of me, like, hey, like if I could race every other day the whole year, I would gladly do that. Like I'll race anyone, anytime, any place. And I think that just, having had so many of those, different types of races, racing so many different guys, so many places off of, really like a little bit of sleep. Sometimes I've flown in the day of a race to a place because of like flight issues. I think that just having gone through, so many trials and tribulations in my own racing experience, that it just like sets me up to know that like I can, hit a certain pace on any day. And there's no stress for me really when I do that. Like I know that, all the training that I've done over the last decade, like I've hit these paces so many times that it's so comfortable. It's almost second nature. So I think, guys like that, right? They know they like a guy that they know they're going to sit behind. It's not going to go out in 52 seconds for 1500, right? So I think that, just kind of a lot of like playing off of each other. And I think that it's really just been, my experience as a racer that's really given me the confidence to go into these pacing jobs and know that like, hey, whatever they ask for, that, I'm pretty confident I'm going to be able to, give them pretty close to what they want.
So like when you're first starting out getting some of these pace jobs, like what was your rapport like then versus now with some of the people that you've paced? I mean, how many times for especially some of these record attempts. What's your relationship been like with those who you've done multiple pacing jobs for?
Yes, I mean, it kind of came out of nowhere, like the whole pacing thing. So I raced an 800 in New York last year, and I know a lot of the meet directors really well because I've done their races so many times. Yes, I mean, I raced an 800 in New York, and they asked me like 2 days before the pacer had pulled out of a Diamond League in the UK. And I know the meet director really well, so he reached out. So I flew in the day after my race, and I got there the day of. Paced that 1500, and then just kind of took off from there. I mean, I know a lot of the 800 guys really, really well, but I really didn't know many of the 1500 guys. But now, I've come really close with like Stuart McSwain, especially Tim Chariot. So I mean, I know those guys pretty well, and getting to know them on and off the track has been awesome.
Knowing how often you race and how often you pace races, how often you race yourself, and for the longevity as well of it, and knowing that you have not had to deal with any like catastrophic injuries or anything like that. Like year in and year out, you're racing more than basically everybody in the sport. Like, how do you structure your training, both in terms of like cycles throughout the year? Cause like a normal person would typically, have like, they have some months where they're not racing, just doing base. And then they like really kind of pick their battles in terms of, I'm only going to race this many times and I'm going to peak for this one race. So like, how do you still peak for championship races and the US championships and all of that while you're like at the same time basically need to be in near peak form year round or, for several months of the year in order to be able to hit all these specific pace jobs and your Mr. Consistency as well on your own racing and ability to run 145 basically no matter when it is, any time of year, any place, you're able to still keep running those times. So yeah, I'm curious how you like kind of phase the training to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm super fortunate. I've been with Coach Woody now since 2008. So, man, this is, 13, 14 years we've been together. And so we kind of sit down at the beginning of the year and we devise a plan of like, hey, these are the races that we would like to, take part in if we're able to. And then kind of formulate the training and look at like, hey, this might be a good time to, get a couple of pacing jobs in and knowing that, hey, like this is probably going to end up being like our big workout for the week, especially if I can, pace an 800 and go through, 500 or 600 meters and come back and pace 1,000 and go through, 900 or 1,000. Like that's a great workout for me. So I think that, being able to look at it like a workout and not so much as like focusing on having to taper for these pace jobs, I think has been big. So yeah, a lot of it's a credit to him. Like he does such a good job in, structuring my training with the races and the pacing jobs that, I don't have to worry, about that at all. So, just knowing that, he's always got my best interest in hand, he knows me really well as an athlete, knows what I can handle and when to do certain things. So, it's a lot of stress taken off my plate. He just kind of tells me what to do and, I listen and it's worked out for us.
Yeah. When you're doing pace setting, do you typically have a workout after the pace job as well that you're doing on those days? Or is that typically the workout for the day is just to hit that, pace job?
If I'm just going to pace one race, then I'll typically do something after. But some of these times where it's like, I'll pace 800 and then like an hour and a half later, I pace the 15. I generally wouldn't do something after that because, I don't know, kind of warming up like 3 times for me in the span of a few hours.
Right.
I don't tend to feel very good. Whereas if it's kind of, pacing one race and then, 15, 20 minutes later, if I can, do some faster stuff, it kind of resembles like when we would run like a 4x4 or something in college. Like it was usually like, 45 minutes to an hour afterwards. So that's kind of something I'm pretty familiar with. So yeah, if it's like one race, we'll generally do something faster afterwards. Like it's never like a tempo or fartlek or anything like that. Like if we do something, it'll generally be like faster 200s or 300s or something like that after a pace job.
Makes sense. So with the sponsor situation, then not having one currently, you're repping the Bell Lap track and field gear, which is probably one of the coolest singlets out there, by the way, side note. But do you, at this point, like, are you still actively trying to get a sponsorship? Are you in talks with any of the shoe sponsors, or do you foresee like your future in track and field being you'll kind of use pace setting as your way to subsidize your own racing and just continue to compete on your own accord? Where are you at in terms of those discussions?
I mean, we've had some conversations. Some of them seemed promising at one point and have kind of flickered out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm always open to that kind of stuff, right? Because especially track and field, like having a guaranteed income, knowing when money is going to be coming in is huge. Like a lot of these races that I pace, like I won't see the money for, 3, 4, 5 months. So just like having a structure of, income coming in, it would be awesome. But at the same point, like it's not going to deter me from, chasing what I ultimately want to achieve. So like having a contract would be awesome. I think that, I could provide a lot to a brand, not just like the TV time being in front of all these races, but I think that, I've been, pretty consistent over the past decade, like still making US finals. I think that, I bring a lot to the table just as far as my own, endeavors go. So yeah, there's nothing right now. I'm super proud to rep Bell Lap. Those guys are great and doing great things for the sport. So if I rep that jersey for the rest of my career, that'll be cool. But yeah, I'm always open to, whatever options are out there. Obviously, just listening to those and, maybe something will happen, maybe it won't, but
something we ask some of our guests who have a particular like affinity to a brand or whatnot, like, do you have a dream, just like way out of left field sponsor that you would like love to sign tomorrow?
Kind of like it's like a cheat like snack. I love me a good Mountain Dew. So if Mountain Dew came out and was like, "Hey, we'll throw a green jersey on you and a Mountain Dew logo," I would take that any day of the week. So
I love that.
Answer. I like
that is being not affiliated with a shoe sponsor currently. Have you, I don't know, tried to in some way take on the NASCAR approach of like getting a bunch of different sponsors for different aspects of, I don't know, kind of like Nick Simmons is the one person that comes to mind as someone who like kind of tried to pull this off of, put a temporary tattoo of a logo on your arm, like that sort of thing. Because without the shoe sponsor, you have maybe a little bit more flexibility, although there still are all the regulations around the logos that you can put on your jersey and the size of them and all that sort of stuff at US Champs and everything, which is kind of a buzzkill. But yeah, have you tried that at all, or maybe the restrictions are much too high to even go for it?
That's always something I've advocated for, and that's been the hardest thing. Is like, I mean, I could easily find 5, 10 local businesses that would gladly throw me a few $1,000s a piece, but the fact that I can't put them all on my uniform, like the part that someone's going to see during a race on TV, like that's the biggest deterrent for a lot of these people. So to me, that is something that's tough, right? Is with having logos, like obviously, like I can't have a specific logo on my socks, then have a different one on my half tight, and then have a different one on my jersey. Like it just, with the regulations and stuff, it just doesn't work like that. So that's been the toughest thing, right? Like there'd be easy ways to piece things together to make things like that work, but just with how things are structured with USATF and World Athletics, like athletes just aren't allowed to do that. Like I had the Bell Lap jersey I've been wearing the entire year. When I was at the Diamond League in Poland a couple weeks ago, they took out the thing to measure the logo as if it was something that would be against regulation, whereas all these guys got the Nike jerseys on and they're not worried about that. But I'm the one that in the call room they take out the measuring tape and make sure that it's up to code, even though I've been wearing it for 2 years. But
God,
I'm gonna go ahead and say hashtag bad for the sport.
Yeah. God, that just makes me so angry, like so annoyed, because like even triathlon, you look at that as a sport, and a triathlete has like a different headwear sponsor, glasses sponsor, like fuel, nutrition sponsor. It's like they can have like 10 different sponsorships even if they're only a few K a piece, but you put together 10 of them, well, then you got yourself a full-time good salary coming in every year. And yeah, it just doesn't.
Oh no, exactly.
Doesn't make any sense.
Right. Like it'd be easy to do, but they just, they don't want us to be able to do it for some reason.
Yep. Let's talk about a little bit about your experience this past indoor pacing, Jakob. This was a listener question as well. So what was that like to be part of a, indoor world record attempt and, ultimately successful?
Yeah, and it was cool. I mean, to be seeked out to be in that position by him was, definitely something that was pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like he just said, "Hey, I want you to hit this time through 1,000." And the day of the race, he told me he was feeling good. So he said, get to that point in the race and just step off the track and I'll take care of the rest of it. So, it's always nice to know when a guy like that is confident going into the race. Like, he's going to be on your heels. Like, it's not something I have to worry about, like backing off the pace if they're not there and still trying to help out. Like, I knew he was going to be there and be pushing from the gun. So, honestly, it makes it a little easier when someone, says they're going to go for a record and from the gun, they're right there, because then it's less thinking for me or another pacer in the race. They just focus on getting to where you have to be instead of like trying to adjust the pace throughout the race. So it was awesome to be a part of that. He's a great guy, so he's been doing great things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm curious, what's that like when you do have a pace that you've been asked to set? Is that kind of like one of your skills that has just grown over doing all these pace jobs, is knowing when like the requested pace is going to be a little bit too fast given the day?
I feel like in a lot of these races, like the first 100 meters or 200 meters, you have a pretty good idea if guys are going to go with it or not. And some of the times you'll be talking to the athletes and they have no idea who asked for this pace, so sometimes, but sometimes, right, like the meet directors want it to be a fast pace because they want their meet to be, fast and get more points and be ranked, one of the highest meets during the year. And so, if it's bad weather, athletes aren't feeling it, if there's not a front runner in the race, like sometimes the pace is super irrelevant. So, I'll get out the first 100 meters in an 800 and look over my shoulder and there's absolutely nobody there. So obviously there's no point in me running 50.5 if the field's going to be 54. So it's kind of, trying to dial back. And at least, I've been in that position so many times, like you still want to help the athletes in the race, right? Like you don't want to be irrelevant and at least, kind of, help pull them through and at least make it a competitive race for them and not just be out in the front doing nothing. So, from doing this so much racing and pacing, I feel like, in the first 100 or 200 meters of any race, I kind of have an idea if they're going to be there. And if not, just kind of trying to figure out how to, adjust my pace to kind of, still help them out and, take a little bit of work off their shoulders for the rest of the race.
Yeah. And at USA's this year, rounding out kind of your season thus far. I mean, you ended up 7th place. It was I believe it was like your 16th U.S. final that you were a part of. So a lot of U.S. finals, again, Mr. Consistency, but I think you said that you had COVID going into that race. So did that race kind of end up, what were your expectations, I guess, going in, and how did it all kind of play out?
Yeah, so I ran really well the week prior. So I was in New York, ran 145.5, had a really good race. I mean, beat Clayton, I beat Isaiah Jewett. So I knew I was in a pretty good place going into USA's. Got back and, just was kind of feeling a little bit under the weather. And I thought I had allergies, like this kind of time of year, I get allergies all the time. So tested once, negative, tested twice, next day negative. And then the day after that, it's like, I'll test again. It ended up being positive. First time having it in, 2.5 years. I've traveled, I've done so many races now, what are the odds that this is when it happens, 8 days out from the prelim at USA's. So yeah, I mean, I've no idea where I got it. Like I had my own room in New York. Got takeout every night. I still wore a mask everywhere I was inside. So that was frustrating sometimes. You feel like you do everything right and then the world still conspires against you somehow to to do that. So I mean, it was tough. I'm not gonna lie. Like I got to Eugene and I got there Tuesday. The first round was Thursday, and honestly, I didn't know if I was going to even make it to the line for the prelim. Like Tuesday, Wednesday, I was sleeping like 18 hours. That was the hardest thing for me. Was like the fatigue. It wasn't even like I never had like bad symptoms. Like I had a little bit of like a scratchy throat, a little bit of congestion, but like very minimal fever, nothing like that. It was just I've never been so tired. Like I would sleep like 10 hours during the night and then felt like I didn't sleep at all, and then eat breakfast and take a 3-hour nap and then, try to do a little bit of a shakeout. And yeah, like I got to the line for the prelim and I was like, all right, like no matter how this goes, like at least I'm here. And then, fought through the prelim, didn't feel great, but made it through. And then the semi, felt a little bit better. And, I think, if I would have had another week or two, maybe the result would have been a little different. I think that, there was every chance there for me to make the team, COVID or not. I mean, you only took 145 low So I was right there. But like I ran the race exactly how I would have if I was feeling great, if I wasn't feeling great. So, I gave myself a good chance to make the team and, just didn't have the last 100 meters. So, it's definitely unfortunate, things leading up to it. But at the end of the day, like I'm super happy with how I ran and, just, kind of battling through those circumstances and just, giving it everything I had like I do every time I'm out there. So.
One other thing I was curious about going back to kind of the sponsorship talk was, so coming out of, and actually it's kind of it's almost like a deja vu a little bit. So like looking at your history. So in high school, you were a state champion, but you weren't like, an A-list recruit, coming out of high school in terms of like nationally known or anything like that. But joined the University of Iowa, got a lot better throughout, and then kind of like leaving University of Iowa, then not having, again, not like, A-list recruit into the pro scene, but you kept after it. And then had a really great year that first year out of college, both getting that 600 meter record, American record, as well as the US indoor title. So where was your head at kind of leaving college, knowing that you didn't have a sponsorship at that point? You were working at the running store in Iowa City to make ends meet. Like, was that really stressful throughout the competing, or were you able to still kind of just stay positive and, take it one race at a time and know that you were doing what you wanted to be doing and all of that? I mean, I would assume that it's tough not knowing, will this actually work out? Will it not work out? Will I have enough money to make ends meet? All that sort of stuff. So would love to hear a little bit about where your head was at that point in your life.
Yeah. It was a lot less stressful then than it is now. Now, I have got a house and I've got all these bills to pay. And so, it was a little less stressful back then. Being first year out of college, I was living with, 4 guys in a college house in Iowa City. So bills were pretty minimal. And, I'd taken the MCAT, my senior year. And like the plan was, hey, like I'm going to apply to med schools. And so I'd done that. And then, ran well at NCAAs, and Coach Woody was like, hey, I think we should just, give this another year, like see what happens. And yeah, so the running store thing was awesome because those guys would work around any aspect of my schedule, practice, weightlifting, traveling, anything like that. So it was cool to just have a job like that was so supportive in my endeavors that really took a lot of stress off me. Like I could work as much or as little as I wanted to. So my family, friends have all been great in supporting me throughout the entire journey. So there's been very minimal stress. Like there's no day that I go to the track and does it ever feel like a job to me. Like I've been so fortunate to be able to do this for so long that, I still have a blast every single day I go to the track. I was just at the track before this and, I hadn't seen Coach in, like 2.5 weeks. Schedules just didn't match up and the college kids are back. It's the first day of practice. So just being back in that environment, it just kind of, sparked me even more and just reminded me like how lucky I am to be able to do this and how much I enjoy it.
What's it, since you've had like such a long career, what has it been like describing what you do for work to people who might not necessarily know the running world?
It's weird because everyone either wonders if you run the marathon or how fast you can run the mile in. So kind of explaining to them that, hey, like, yeah, I've run the mile, I've run okay, but at the end of the day, like that's not exactly what I do as a profession. So kind of explain it to him. And honestly, like I've like sat next to a lot of people on airplanes that are super curious about it and like have like gained some fans through that. And just kind of, people don't really know about track unless you've had like a kid who runs track or you ran track in high school. Like people don't really know much about it. So I think that, I've gained a lot of fans who had no idea what track and field was just for like casual conversation. So that's been kind of cool. And I think that it just shows that like the popularity of the sport is like nothing compared to what it could be. And like, I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think that, it just shows that like, hey, like, you see all these meets on TV, but like it's such a small portion of, sports fans in the population that have any idea what's going on. So yeah, it's interesting explaining it to people who have no idea, but I think the more people that, I talk to and kind of explain better that they do like respect it, some of them become track fans because of it.
Has anyone ever like sought you out specifically over like just general advice around pacing and like trying to get at least some level of income through that while supporting pro running career?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people reach out, about pacing, or even just athletes who are in college and kind of, want to take that next step, but maybe they're not at the level that they, are going to get like a financial backing or anything. And like I've always told people, like if it's about training, if it's anything in track and field, like I'm an open book. Like I was in that position and I've been through so many, trials and tribulations in track and field that I'm always happy to, help people or give advice if I'm able to. And if it's even something that I don't have the answer to, like I'll definitely, try to find someone who can, because at the end of the day, like I've had people help me in so many ways in the sport that, giving back is just like the least that I can do. So.
Are you doing any sort of formal coaching today, or have you in the past, either with the Hawkeyes or anyone else?
I coached a high school team I was an assistant for like 5 years. So that was awesome. COVID kind of put a wrench in that. I had to become a volunteer assistant to still train and use the facilities at Iowa. So because I was a volunteer assistant, I wasn't able to continue the high school coaching. But yeah, I mean, being a volunteer assistant in Iowa, like I helped them with stuff like that. I've also, helped coach some friends and family. They wanted to, run a 10K, run a marathon, and I have background in physiology in college. So I've written training plans like that. My partner, Bethany, she was a 800-meter runner in college, ran 2:02 and transitioned into the ultras. So she ran a really fast 50-miler, ran like 7:28. I trained her through that. And then she ran a 100-miler and I wrote her training plan for that. So, yeah, so I mean, I enjoy doing it. I don't know if it's something that I want to do like professionally, but it's been pretty cool to, just help people achieve their goals, whether it's track or something longer than that. So I definitely enjoy that.
Man, so are you going to be joining Bethany out on the 100-mile races anytime soon once your career on the track ends?
So funny, she ran the 50-miler, and it was kind of in between indoors and outdoors for me. So it was either like end of March or early April, and she had a friend who was going to pace her for part of the back half, who ended up having to back out. So I was like, all right, like, I'll hop in a little bit and just, get her through some of the portions. I ended up running the last 23 miles with her. So I'd never been on my feet that long. I think that was the hardest thing. Like I'd never run for, 3+ hours. But it was cool, being able to share that with her. I mean, she ended up being like the top female in the race and won that. So it was a pretty cool experience to do that together. I don't think it's something that I will pursue when I'm done with my track and field career. But yeah, no, I love going to those kind of events, helping friends and, supporting them in their endeavors too. So
yeah. Man, that's quite the leap to go from, a 400, 800 guy yourself to coaching people in ultras. quite the leap of faith there. Oh man.
Yeah, that's been fun.
That's awesome. Let's see. We got a couple more listener questions that came in. I want to make sure to ask as well. So, someone wants to know, what's your favorite D3 school in Iowa?
Favorite D3 school in Iowa? Oh, that's tough, because I know a lot of those head coaches really well, and they're great guys. And I know a lot of the athletes really well. So I don't know that I could pick a favorite. But, I've been able to pace, some of those guys at Loris. I paced the, 15 and 800 for them indoors last year. Those are some great guys. University of Dubuque, I know a lot of those guys pretty well. So I'm not going to pick a favorite. But, I support all of the colleges in Iowa at all levels. So, well,
you said the right answer, because I'm pretty sure the person who asked that question is from Loris. So good call.
There we go.
Nailed it. What is your favorite track venue that you've ever raced in throughout the world?
Oh, that's tough. Rome Diamond League is cool. The warm-up track has all like the original statues, which is pretty cool, from the Olympic Stadium. Beijing, I really loved racing in the Bird's Nest. That was awesome. And just some of the crowds that they had for, world championships there when I ran in 2015 was awesome. And then indoors, the Armory, for me, like a lot of great memories there that I can't beat that. And just kind of having the crowd like sitting above you, it's definitely way different than most indoor track venues in the world. So I would say that those are probably three of my favorites.
Excellent. Do any make the list as places you would never, it could either be the venue or just the city that it's in, but places that you've traveled for racing that you would prefer not to go back to?
Ooh, it's hard for me to turn down a race regardless. Moscow was an interesting place to visit. Like I ran an indoor meet there a couple times. The track was super nice, and the hotel, like you're pulling up the hotel, it looked like you were in Vegas, and it seemed super cool. And then you get into the room, and it's like the rooms are from the 70s, like the TV, like the knob you have to pull out to turn it on. And yeah, so that was, and the meet was in February, so it was like cold and snowy and dark, and yeah, so that one, I mean, at this rate, is probably not going to come back anyways, but that would be one that I would probably question going back to if I was invited.
Fair enough. How about what race throughout your entire career are you most proud of?
Ooh, most proud of. I think when we won the Big Ten championship at Iowa, we scored over 100 points on the last day. The athletic director left because he didn't think we had a chance to win the meet. And it came down to the 4x4, and like we knew I think we needed to finish like top 3. Just something about like winning a Big Ten championship at home, like being a part of a team and knowing that you're a part of the relay that it's come down to. I think that was pretty special to me. I think that like the team aspect of track and field, I've loved being on the world relay teams, those 4x8s. So I think that, probably that Big Ten championship meet at home my junior year, being able to win that. And just, we were last place in the Big Ten my freshman year, and just being able to turn it around the next couple of years to do that, I would say that was probably it.
If you wanted to like script something for a movie, you probably couldn't write it better than that.
It was so like, I just remember hearing the story afterwards that they had to call the athletic director to come back because, we had a chance to win the meet. So that was pretty funny.
I'm pretty sure my parents, they have like a bunch of posters and crap in the basement, like memorabilia stuff. I'm pretty sure there's a picture of like that Big Ten championship when all of you guys like basically are out on the track jumping on each other or whatever. There's like a picture from that exact day that's on some poster that they have in their basement on the wall still. So I'll have to, next time I go home, I'm going to have to look at that again and refresh my memory. Yeah. But yeah, it looked pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
I'm curious, would you be in favor of like having more of those relays at especially some of the domestic meets out in the US?
Yeah, I'm surprised that there's not more, right? Especially with a lot of the clubs now. Like, you think that maybe like a 4x8 or a DMR or something would be semi-popular that people would want to run here or there, but it just never really seems to happen. I jump at the opportunity every chance I get to run a relay. I ran a couple 4x4s here at Iowa this year. I did run the 4x1 last year. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I did. I did. Was a little confused to see your name in the 4x1, but did see that.
Just 398 guys and then me. No big deal. But I love to run relays, and I wish that there were more opportunities to do that. Just like being on the same team as some of these guys, as opposed to like racing them every single time. Like, a lot of them are such good friends that it'd be cool to share some of those, moments with guys that, man, I wish that there were more relay opportunities.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Give us like a celebratory post-race meal. Like, what are you going to after you crush it out on the track? What's your go-to food?
I love like a burger and some wings at the end of the season. That's probably one of my go-tos. Any
alcoholic beverages of choice? Are you into beer or wine or any?
Yeah, I like beer. I just had some Spotted Cow being back in Wisconsin.
Oh, there you go.
So that was
somebody on my rooftop had I think they had 2 24-packs of Spotted Cow, and I was like, how? Like,
where do you live?
I live in Chicago, like probably
okay.
50 minutes if you're booking it, you can get to Wisconsin. Like, there's a Woodman's right past the border, but this guy had like almost 50 beers from Spotted Cow, and I was like I don't know, there were a lot of, it was very busy, and I was like, I'm not going to go ask him for Spotted Cow, but I'm like, damn, like this guy has his life together. He planned for this weekend to bring out all these Spotted Cows.
Smart man.
I guess since you know about Can you explain the phenomenon of spotted cow to our listeners?
So you can only purchase it in Wisconsin, and you're not supposed to transport it across state lines. And they're not supposed, like, you can't buy a keg in Wisconsin and have it on tap at like a restaurant or something in another state. So A, it's a good beer, but I think B, just like the exclusivity of it, I think just makes people that much more excited when they get to drink it or when they see it somewhere. So
yeah, they're marketing like they're PR folks. They know what they're doing.
And it's like New Glarus. Like, I mean, they have other beers, but it's like only Spotted Cow that you hear about that people are like, this is the one that I need to get when I go to Wisconsin.
Yeah. Is that true for all of their beers? Are all of them only available in Wisconsin, or do they? Okay. I didn't know.
I think all Glarus.
I'm pretty sure it's all New Glarus beers. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That makes more sense. I guess I haven't paid attention that closely at the store, but I was wondering if it was like just Spotted Cow was like that gem that they wanted to keep exclusive. Yeah. But okay. It's all of it.
Pretty sure it's all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's doing well because every time now, like I know Adam, you go to Wisconsin across the border, like you'll pick it up. Yeah. So they did something right.
Even when I'm up in by my parents' place, which is maybe 15 minutes from the border, I'll be like, what's another 15 minutes if I'm driving back home? Like, whatever. Yeah. Oh, man, we did have a good closer, I think, for you, which is you've obviously had a very long track and field career. I'm curious, over your entire career, what changes have you noticed in the sport? And as a follow-up, given those changes, are you optimistic about the future of the sport?
Oh, I think domestically, there's a lot of people doing a lot of cool things in the sport right now. I think that it started, when Vin tried to do that Tracktown series in 2016, which was awesome to be a part of. I mean, financially, it was awesome for the athletes. I think that obviously that didn't pan out. But I think, that kind of transitioned into this whole, American Track League thing. And you've got, so many people doing so many cool things with these meet series, whether it's, fully elite, sub-elite, like public events. I think that, that has kind of been one of the coolest things, in my opinion, just seeing a lot more of these opportunities pop up for all different kinds of athletes. So I think that's been super promising for me as an athlete, and just, a lot of people that I know have loved competing in a lot of these events. So I think that's promising, seeing more domestic opportunities. I think that's been, a struggle for a lot of elites and sub-elites, is like, hey, there's, only a certain amount of meets during the year in the US. There's limited lanes available. Like, some people just weren't getting opportunities to, showcase, what they can do. And I think that the more opportunities we get to do that, I think that could hopefully, help the sport here domestically kind of take off. So I think that, that's something, whether I stay in the sport when I'm, done racing and pacing myself, regardless, I'd like to, hopefully help be able to do some of that kind of stuff and just, give more of these athletes those kind of opportunities, because I think that there's a lot of athletes that people, don't really know about because they don't get to see them. I just training here at Iowa. I mean, Coach Woody's got a guy who was 5th world indoors in the 60-meter hurdles that someone, 99.99% of even track fans have probably never heard of. He's got a couple guys that have run, 13-1, 13-0 in the 110s. They can't get any sort of, financial backing. I think that the more that, those guys are in the first, beginning of their career, and hopefully that they'll have more opportunities that a lot of us athletes had, just to be able to, showcase their talents and, get their, races on TVs, and hopefully just kind of build the sport that way. So I think that I'm optimistic in the direction that things are going. I just hope that, the traction keeps going, and that, this isn't, kind of a 1 or 2 year thing that fizzles out. So.
That was
a great
perfect
answer.
Perfect way to close it out. Thank you for putting up with the multiple drops and restarts on the call.
No problem. If I had a webcam, this might not have been an issue, so it could be my iPhone causing the issues. But I had a great time chatting with you guys.